grocery tour. My name is Sarah Zellers, and I'm going to be leading the tour today. I'm a student member of the Student Dietetic Association at the University of Memphis, and so thank you all so much for coming today. We're going to start our tour in the produce section with, of course, the fruits and vegetables and all the good stuff that this has. And so if you're shopping at Kroger, I really like Kroger because they have a very large selection of organic produce here. And you can see they have it separated, certified organic, and also on the tags, they will actually say organic on the tags if you want to look at that. You can always tell an organic item at Kroger in the produce section because it actually has the USDA organic seal on the tag. And so Kroger, you don't have to shop at more specialty food stores to get the organic foods anymore. Your local neighborhood grocery stores tend to also have them as well. Another great thing about Kroger and about shopping for produce, you need to know how to pick produce correctly. If it's ripe, because the riper it is, picked at the peak of freshness, that's when it's going to have the most nutrient denseness to it. It's going to have the most vitamins and minerals that you want. And Kroger is really good because a lot of people don't know how to pick those. And so if you look above the peppers and then above the mushrooms also, there are actual labels that describe how to pick a ripe, a fresh, and a nutrient-dense version of what you're looking for. They will also, sometimes I've seen it on other items, if it is a specialty item, sometimes they will have that also, but those tend to be permanent fixtures at the Kroger.
Is that new?
It's fairly new, and I think as Kroger the Krogers are being remodeled, they're being added. I've not seen them at all the Krogers in town, but as the remodeled ones, definitely, they do have those. Another section that I like to point out, just because I'm all about trying new things and trying things that look interesting, is Kroger tends to also have a very interesting exotic fruit and vegetable section. So you have just things that look interesting to try, but it's mainly fruits because I think people are more willing to try an exotic fruit than an exotic vegetable most of the time. But they have everything, well not everything, but a lot of different things. Strawberry papayas, I've never even heard of that, but it sounds really awesome and I'd love to try it. And so they had yesterday when I was in here, they were actually giving samples out of the jackfruit. So for you to try before you actually get to, buy it. And so I highly recommend people, every now and then just come over to this section and pick out something random and just to try it because you might find your new favorite fruit. Cool. So are there any questions about the fruit and vegetable section? Or
They're starting to incorporate that more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that they are trying to compete with the more specialty food stores, including the foreign food markets that are cropping up.
Yeah, because I used to make a trip to the farmer's market.
Right.
Another trip to Kroger.
Yeah, and
be able to make just one trip.
Yeah, and I mean, for things such as aloe, you used to only be able to get these at the foreign markets, the Asian food stores and things like that. But now they're incorporating them here in Kroger for people who are interested in cooking that kind of thing. And so you don't necessarily need to make 101 stops throughout the city to get everything that you need. They are doing a great job now about including other things. Another thing I want to point out about Kroger before we move on is they have a strong commitment for local. And so when things start to come in season here, tomatoes and corn and green beans and all the wonderful fruits and vegetables that we grow here, they actually will stock them in store. And so they normally will be toward the front, and when they're in season, they'll be cheaper. And then out of season, of course, but they will have big signs that say local produce on it. And this Kroger also has signs up above about where some of the farms they get produce from in the area. And of course, the quicker it's picked, especially with fresh, the quicker it's picked and the quicker it gets to your table, it will be the more nutrient-dense option. And so anytime you can grow local, not only are you helping the local economy and local farmers survive, but you're also more than likely getting a more nutrient-rich item. So, all right, we'll move on then. Our next section is the Live Naturally section at Kroger, and they say it's free from 101 artificial ingredients and preservatives. I wanted to stop in this section because I wanted to point out all the varieties that they might have. Because there's the standard milk section in Kroger, which has a handful of different kinds and different styles and things like that. But this section is where you're going to find the more specialized milks, such as the coconut milks and the almond milks and the soy milks and the cashew milks and all different options. And so if for some reason you or your family member can't have traditional dairy, there are all kinds of different options, and not just the milks, but the butters, vegan butters, or the sour creams, or the creamers, and cheeses and yogurts and all of that. They have non-dairy yogurts and non-dairy, you name it, they pretty much have it. And so this is a really interesting section to look through and to try different things. I know we're going to be sampling later today. We're going to be sampling this one. And how would you pronounce this one?
I heard it. I actually looked it up.
Okay.
It's pronounced kefir.
Kefir.
But mostly people in America call it kefir or kefir.
So it's a yogurt smoothie kind of thing, but it's very high in probiotics. And so we're going to be trying this one later. It's just another option to get. It's very nutrient dense for the amount in the serving size. So again, the different yogurts, they have the name brand organics, but then Kroger also has their own brand of organics, which is Simply Truths. And there are different levels of Simply Truth, but it will say it on like Simply Truth Organic, Simply Truth Natural, things like that. And so the Kroger brand is, I'm a brand shopper, a store brand shopper for most things, just because it tends to be less expensive than the name brands and just as good. And so Kroger does have a Simply Truth for the organic and the naturals and all that. They do have their own store brand on those items as well. And so are there any questions about the wide variety of dairy and dairy substitutes?
Now, Kroger, do you know if Kroger is planning on implementing these sections in all Kroger? Because I just currently moved, and the Kroger on my house, my new house, have this organic section.
What Kroger? I would think so, just because I feel like so many Krogers are being remodeled. Obviously, I don't know for sure, but I would think that they would at least have some sort of section. So I feel like these days, this one is pretty big. You'll see, we'll kind of walk through it. It goes, 3 more aisles down. And
the Kroger in Collierville has a very small organic section, but it's there. You just kind of have to
that's where I
hunt for
moved
it.
from. And
Okay.
they had an aisle. So, I've only been there once. I've just only shopped there once. I'll be there again today, but
I think it
shop.
depends on the size of the Kroger and how recently it's been remodeled. Because of course the actual footprint of the store will determine how much space they can give to a specialty section. And so and this one is a very, very large Kroger, and so they can devote more space to the specialty section. Whereas the Collierville location is a much smaller Kroger, but at least they do have it. So I'm sure if Arlington hasn't been remodeled yet, because they are slowly remodeling all the Krogers in the area.
It's very small.
Yeah.
House, so it's
And
growing.
so hopefully they will get it in the not too distant
you
future.
could definitely ask the manager too, or anyone at the front desk, and just be like, do you know if there's going to be?
And
are you
the
guys
more
remodeling
requests they get, the more likely they are to start ordering those products and including those products in the store. Because stores are in the market to make a profit. And so they're only going to stock the items that are being bought because it's not profitable for them to not have it. So if they don't know that there is a market locally for natural and organic produce or natural and organic items, there we go, then they're not going to stock them. And so the more you can voice that you want that at your local store, the more likely they are to actually start carrying them.
I did hear too, they're going to be building a new health food store in Lakeland, which isn't too far from me. I don't know exactly where you are in Arlington. But have you guys ever heard of the store Sprouts? They're going to build,
the same.
it's like a spin-off of Whole Foods kind of. Like they split, and then one made Trader Joe's, one made Sprouts, I think. But it's a more affordable health food store, and they're going to build one in Germantown and Lakeland. So, which I'm so excited about. Yeah. So I don't know where in Lakeland, but I looked it up online, so we should.
Question. When you say nutrient rich, rich or nutrient dense. Does that necessarily mean calorie dense
No,
as well?
not necessarily. When I say nutrient dense, I'm talking about the vitamins, minerals, and the actual nutrients. And of course, calories are nutrient. That's the energy content. But that's not, when you say nutrient dense, that's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily mean it's higher in calories. It just means that it might have, if one yogurt has 10 grams of protein and another has 15 grams of protein, that means that is more nutrient dense in protein.
You could also think of it in the way as like, empty calories versus more quality calories.
Right.
You might have, a glass of kefir or some yogurt and it's going to have more nutrients in it versus, a cupcake, which might have the same amount of calories, but you're not getting any sort of nutrients from it. So you can think of it that way. Even if it is a little bit higher calories, it's going to be good, nourishing calories as opposed to, just some, more empty calories.
The more food you're going to eat that's not going to.
Right.
So it's definitely, it doesn't mean you can't ever have those empty calories, but, that kind of 80-20 rule of 80% healthy, nutrient-dense foods, 20% treats.
My issue now, I've had this gastric sleeve. So, yes, I've lost a lot of weight and I need to lose more. But the thing is, getting nutrients, I'm now taking tons of vitamins because it's hard to get all the nutrients that I need in the calorie allotment that I should put into my body.
Well, I am a firm believer in label reading. And so if you are in the market for a yogurt, and in fact, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this here? Pick up 2 yogurts, 2 different brands of yogurt. Say you're in the market for yogurt and you want yogurt. So pick up 2 different brands that are, the same idea. Right. Okay, now if you turn them over. Yep. So if you turn them over to the nutrient facts, so we know that these are 5.3 ounce servings, and that should be the same also.
Yes.
Yeah, 5.3. So this one has 120 calories. That one also has 120 calories, so that's the same. Fat, 0, which is the same. I see cholesterol. So this one is less than 5, and this one says 5.
Okay.
Sodium. This has a lot more sodium. It's 85 milligrams, and this is only 55 milligrams.
Okay.
So even though with the same calories and the same fat, we know that this has less sodium in it.
Right.
So carbohydrates, this is 17, and that's 19, so that has more carbohydrates
So it has
in
more
too.
sugar in there too.
More sugars.
Yep.
And protein, this has more protein. So
That would be
between
the
the
healthier
choice,
choice.
right, this would be
Okay.
the
Same
more,
amount of calories, but more protein.
Protein, right.
which means that this is more nutrient dense than that option. So I'm all about label reading. Just take the moment, pick it up. And so most people, well not most, but a lot of people would have automatically bought this one because it's a name brand product. But this Simply Truth Kroger version is actually more nutrient dense and it's less expensive too. So it takes a little bit more time, but once you have taken the time the first time, you can make note of which brands and which items, and that will make your shopping go quicker in the future. So the first few times you're looking for something in particular, just take that extra time, set a little bit more time apart for your shopping, and really take the time to look at the labels, because you'll be surprised. And I'll talk about a personal story in the bean section when we get there, about salt versus no salt added. So
I've gone to the no salt added, and I found that the more and more I've done that, and the salt gets out of me, then when I eat something salty, it's horrendous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
My-
I'm learning to taste the foods.
Yeah.
My
Takes it
husband
as
and I-
it is
Yes, it is.
instead of lip balms.
we don't cook with salt at home. We
I don't
don't.
either.
And so now eating out or eating somebody else's cooking that uses salt in their cooking, it's a shock to the system. So, any other questions about that? They also have, if you were interested in this, they do have a large variety of the meat substitutes in this section also. You also find a variety of them in the frozen food section also. But, so... that's all right. I just
Artificial meat
wanted
just
to.
doesn't kick it,
Well,
yeah.
it's soy. Most of them are soy based,
Yeah.
which is a very high source of protein and all of that. For people that can't have a lot of meat, cholesterol in their diet, it is an option. And so I do like to point that out, that it's here. Even if it's not for you, maybe somebody in your life might be saying, "Oh, I can't have sausage, but I really want sausage in my spaghetti with that taste." And so they do make that option. So Another thing I wanted to point out is that this Kroger, and not all the Krogers, but quite a few of them now have this bulk aisle section, and there's some on the other side also. And so I like these kind of things because if you've never had something, this is a great way to get a sample of it without committing to a whole big package, such as the quinoa. A lot of people, that's a buzzword, you know, that's a buzz food right now. It's a very high protein grain, and so a lot of people like it. But then there are some people that don't, and if you've never had it before, it can be kind of expensive to buy a whole package of it. But here in the bulk, you can just get a little bit of it, buy it, take it home, cook it, and see if you actually like it. And if you like it, then you commit to the larger package. If you don't like it, you move on. And so,
See, it's quite popular over there. It's kind of low.
yeah. And this, you know, it also has all the nuts, which are great sources of protein and magnesium in your diet. And so if you're wanting to make your own trail mix, instead of buying that might have things that you don't like in it, you can come here, get a handful of all different kinds, and then take it home and mix it up yourself. And so
I do that with on the other side, make trail mixes.
Yeah, I saw you
Yes.
had a trail mix.
So yeah, and on the other side they do have the trail mixes and things
So you
like
can
that.
combine those trail mixes if you want.
Yeah.
Add some extra things.
This Kroger also has the local honey dispenser, and so local honey is really great for your immune system. To get the full benefits of honey, you need to buy local honey because it's honey that's been made with the pollens and allergens in your area. And they say that if you have problems with allergies and you take a tablespoon of local honey a day, over time, it's not like taking in Allegra where tomorrow you'll be better, but over time your body will build up a tolerance to allergens. And so Kroger partnered, we talked in the produce section about buying locally, and Kroger has a great selection of local, including the local honeys. And so,
And I think it comes out of Collierville. I think the sign might be over there. So, and again, that's, you know, supporting your local beekeepers.
right, and bees are very important to our environment and for good food choices. So, and behind us, like Ashley was talking about, just because it has some buzzwords on it does not necessarily mean that it's healthier for you. It's not as nutrient dense. So a lot of these have words that you probably have heard in the news and in publications that, oh, that's better for you, right? Like the avocado oil potato chips, or the the popcorns, or any of the pop chips and all that. Yes, they might be lower in calorie than a regular potato chip, but that doesn't automatically make them better for you. They're not as nutrient dense. So I did want to point out that if you like potato chips and that kind of crunch as I do, they do make things that have that same kind of crunch, but actually are more nutrient dense, such as the falafel chips down here. They're actually made with chickpeas. So they have a lot of fiber in them and all the nutrients of a chickpea. There are also, I don't know that this Kroger has them, I buy them a lot, they're called snaffies, where they're actually whole pea pods that have been baked and seasoned. And so you're getting the fiber, protein, and all that of the pea pod, but it's got that nice crispy crunch of the potato chip. So I just wanted to point this section out. This is in the Live Naturally section, and so they are free from a lot of the preservatives and artificial ingredients. But just because it's in this section does not necessarily mean that it is better for you than a regular potato chip.
There's a lot of variety too.
There is a lot of variety. So, are there any questions about the bulk foods, or? But here are more of the bulk foods, like the seeds and nuts and things like that. So, and again, if you see something that you've never tried and looks interesting to you, this is another great option, like the Brazil nuts. I don't know very many people who have tried a Brazil nut before, but that way you can get a couple and try them, and if you like them, then you can buy more of them. So I love the bulk sections of places. I think it's a great way to try new things or to create your own without a lot of because a lot of things that are packaged, like trail mixes and things like that that are pre-packaged for you, also have an agent in there to keep stuff from caking together, especially if it's got raisins and things like that are kind of sticky. There are other things added to it than just the nuts and the fruits and things like that. And so this is a way that you can make your own and avoid all of that kind of thing. Right. Here, the canned fruits and vegetables is another prime example of label reading and why it's so important. And looking for buzzwords It's especially if you're wanting canned fruits or the little fruit cups. If you're wanting to take pack lunch on the go, fruit cups are a great option. But you want to definitely make sure to look for the items that are in juice. Because anytime you're in heavy syrup is just another word for sugar syrup. And so the lighter syrup you get, or all the way down to just in the natural juice, you are getting, you're not going to get a lot of added stuff in your fruit. And again, label reading is very important because different items have different content. Another thing to look for in your can is to make sure you don't want a can that has been dented in any way, because the denting can allow for things like botulism and all kinds of nasty stuff to get in your cans with your food. So you never want to get dented or damaged cans in any way. So vegetables, raw vegetables are best. Fresh vegetables are best because they have a lot of the fibers. You can choose vegetables that you can get the skin. That's a lot of good fiber. Frozen vegetables, and we'll talk about that later. That's another great option because as long as you get ones that are just vegetable, you don't want the added sauces and all that kind of thing. Because frozen vegetables tend to be picked when they are in season, and then they're frozen very quickly after being picked. There might be some nutrient loss just in the freezing process, but it's not going to be as much as canning.
Okay.
But again, here we're talking about reading the labels. So salt, regular versus no salt added. If we turn it over and look at the label, since we're looking particularly at salt, the regular has 320 milligrams out of your 2,300 that you can have out of the day.
Right.
This only has 15, no salt added. So for a lot of canned goods, it makes a really big difference in buying the no salt added. The story I was going to tell you, because again, we don't cook with salt, we try to avoid a lot of salt in our diet for health reasons. So I was looking at, it was tomatoes actually, regular tomatoes versus no salt added tomato, just regular diced tomatoes. And so I flip them over because of course the no salt added, in the vegetables they now tend to be the same price. Tomatoes, it's still a little bit more expensive. So I was flipping it over just to see if it was worth the added cost of, no salt added. And I looked, and it was only a 5 milligram difference. But it was about a 20-30 cent difference a can. And so for me, in our situation, that 5 extra milligrams of salt wasn't worth it to me.
Right.
But I never would have known that had I not flipped over the cans and taken a moment to look. So whenever you're looking at something that has those buzzwords on it, anytime you're looking for something that has a special label on it, it's always worth the time to flip it over and compare it to a regular, because there might not be hardly any actual difference involved. So, but
I'm sorry. For the low sodium, what is the requirement? It has to be how many milligrams or less to be labeled considered low sodium?
Less than 5, I believe. Right?
yeah, see, because this does not say low sodium. This is no salt added.
Yeah. And that
lower
means,
sodium. But
yeah.
Yes.
For a no salt added, I believe it just means that there's no salt added in the canning process, but there could be salt added in another point. You don't really know. So that's why, with your canned tomatoes, there probably wasn't a difference because there was no salt added during the actual canning, but maybe there was when they picked it or diced it or who knows.
Because with canned goods, there has to be a certain percentage of salt and vinegar in it in home canning at least. With store canning, they can get it up to high enough heats, but the salt also helps as it acts as a preservative. And so normally with canned goods, there is going to be some salt, more salt content than, say, getting a fresh piece from the produce section. As most things actually do have some sodium content in them, just naturally, but it's going to be a lot more when you're buying it. Even the no salt added, there's going to be more sodium in this version than buying it fresh or even the frozen version. But again, canned goods are very inexpensive. and you still are getting fiber and nutrients and a lot of good stuff also. So if that's the way that a family can get their vegetables in a way that fits in their budget, that's better than no vegetables. But you just want to read those labels and make sure you understand what you're getting.
I just don't understand why companies would go to the expense of adding salt to all this stuff instead of just canning it naturally.
Well, because the salt, like I said, is a preservative, so more than likely, and this is just my hypothesis on this, is that adding the salt, making it saltier, it's less expensive in the actual overall process. And so by not adding the salt, it might make the actual process of canning it more expensive. So
Part of it too, I mean, for years they've been adding so much salt, so, you know, for taste, you know, most people are accustomed to it, so they're not going to buy it if all of a sudden it just doesn't taste the same. But,
It
you know,
was a
there is
shock.
more education out there, you know, low sodium diets, you know, especially people who might have hypertension or heart problems where they have to be on it. That's becoming a little bit more well known. So hopefully, you know, maybe they will cut down on that salt.
Right.
Well, you do see a lot more no added salt, low sodium.
Yeah.
So it's same thing with the local movement. It's kind of leaning more towards that way, which is great. I think
this
it's
is a
great.
lot easier to add salt to your dish than it is to take away. As if you accidentally buy a regular sweet pea instead of no salt, you can take it and run it under water and that will remove some of the added salt, but not all of it because some of it will have been absorbed.
Right.
So, yeah, it's educating yourself and educating your family and knowing what you're shopping for. Don't just blindly reach. But when we went to no salt added in our household, it was a shock. The tastes were a shock, and we had to relearn how to season foods and find those seasonings that were the salt-free seasoning blends and all of that. And now I like our food a lot more, you know, because you can actually taste your food. You can taste the seasonings and the herbs and spices that you use instead of just salt.
Right. I used to I hated chili because it was always so overdone, you know, it was too rich. And then I had a lady tell me, she said, oh, well, I use salt-free beef broth. I don't use that much tomato. And I use, everything is salt-free. My black beans, everything. And so when I tasted hers, it was wonderful. So now I make that.
Yeah.
And it's all the flavor is there, not all it's not overwhelming. You get to savor it.
Yeah. And a good thing talking about salts is that we seem to like the salt topic. Another great thing is a lot of people will buy beans canned. And that's a great convenient, if you're in a bind, that's a great way to get because beans are full of fiber. And so highly recommend beans in your diet. But if you really are wanting to control your salt content, you need to buy them dry. And the easiest way is to just the night before you want to use them, you know, rinse them off, make sure there's no stones or anything in them, and put them in a big bowl of water and let them soak overnight. And then in the morning before you go to work or before you start your day, this is the way I do it, is you dump them in a slow cooker with water on low and just let them cook all day until you need them. And then magically you have soft, ready to eat beans by the time you actually need to cook them. And so it takes a little bit more thought and a little bit more prep, but not a lot.
Right.
Because you're just letting them soak overnight and then dumping them with fresh water into a crock pot and letting them cook. And then they're a lot cheaper too. You can get, right, you can buy them in bulk or even just the bag, because a can of beans, say black beans, are normally around $1, right? Yeah, black beans, 89 cents, somewhere in that area. You can get a 1 pound bag of beans for about the same price, but that 1 pound bag of beans is the equivalent to about 4 or 5 cans once they have cooked, because they expand as they're cooked. So even though it doesn't look like as much once they're actually cooked, and again, that's one of those things you can cook as much as you need. I think it's about 1 cup of beans, dry beans, is the equivalent once it's cooked of a can of beans. And we do a lot of dried beans in our house because, yeah, you just got to take the time and thought and figure out what you're going to eat in advance and understand what you're cooking. So are there any questions about canned goods or alternatives?
Is it possible? Is there a brand out there, or is the organic brands less than these? I mean, they've got enough salt to put a horse down. Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah, they do. That kind of with the soup, I know I was telling Ashley that even if I get the low sodium, that I will kind of dump some of the broth out and add water to it to kind of cut some of the sodium content because they are loaded.
I like just like I said, when I make mine, I go over here and I'll get the kitchen basics where it's like no added salt.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if you're, because all the canned soups, even the low salt, are going to be really high in sodium.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
So
One thing that we do, we do it on a regular basis, is I will cook, because it's just 2 of us in our household. We don't have kids or anything like that. So I love cooking homemade soup because it tastes better. You use fresher ingredients and things like that, but you end up with a giant pot of soup.
yes,
And so what we have done is they make them, Kroger has their own brand of them, Ziploc does them too. They're plastic bowls that have screw-on lids, and they come in 2-cup or 3-cup, I think, sizes. And so we make our soup. I save some of it in our refrigerator for us to eat for as long as we feel like eating it. And then as soon as it's cool, I spoon it in. We use the 2-cup size because that's about perfect for 2 of us for dinner. You know, when you add other stuff to your meal. And we stick it, I use blue painter's tape and write the name of it and stick it in the freezer.
Oh, okay.
And then, so the night before you want it, you pull it out, stick it in your fridge, and then by the time you're ready to eat it, you've got thawed and ready homemade soup that you have controlled the sodium content.
Oh, good.
And we have
it the whole week.
Yeah, you don't have to eat it the whole week, and I have learned trial and error. Just don't fill it up all the way to the top because it'll pop. So just leave half an inch or so area at the top of your bowl. And I like them because they stack in your refrigerator. You know, once they're frozen, you can turn them on their side and shove them somewhere else and things like that. I used to use baggies, freezer baggies, but I would have problems in the thawing process of them leaking. These bowls don't leak. Okay. And we can look at those while we're here.
Yeah.
I'll show you what I'm talking about. And so, since the lids screw on, you don't have to worry about not getting a seal or anything like that. So that's what we do. That's my trick or way to get around soups, because that way you have a selection. You've got a supply, and I think we've got 4 different ones in our freezer right now. And so when we're ready, when we want a soup, we just pull it out and stick it in. And
Good idea.
so.
Because even the dry soups are just.
Oh yeah.
As far as some of the canned, I mean, if you are in a rush, looking for the heart healthy ones, or really the ones that are going to be your low sodium. And you asked earlier what the low sodium number is, and low sodium is considered less than 140 milligrams. I think no sodium can have up to 5 milligrams and still be considered no sodium.
So are these good?
So, yeah, like this one has, I was looking, it has 130 milligrams.
This is what I use right here because it's unsalted, so it's like the natural
Yeah,
stuff.
130 milligrams. That is awesome. And then when you look at, some of these heart healthy soups, Progressive's pretty good. It's going to have 480. So I mean that is still a lot, but compared to the regular, it's 680. Which if you're trying to get about 2,300 milligrams, which is recommended for most people, that's a good amount of your daily amount if you get to 680. So looking for the heart healthy. As long as you're not eating canned soup every single day, a can every now and then on the run is fine. Obviously, doing homemade control would be your best option. Next, I would say would be using that, and then on the go, try and just get a heart healthy.
So, fruit has, of course, fresh fruit, canned fruit. They also do dried and frozen fruits also, which can be a good choice, as long as you are aware of how much you are eating. The biggest problem with dried fruit I found is there tends to be a lot of added sugar when you're drying fruit, but they do make ones that don't have a lot of sugar added. We're going to be sampling one actually later today.
We'll be sampling this.
Yeah, that one.
It's a 50% less sugar for dried cranberries.
But the problem with dried fruit is people can eat a lot of them in one sitting. Yeah. I know a lot of people like the prunes, which are dried plums. The prune is a dried plum. Well, a whole plum, is about yay big. And so it's going to take time to sit there and eat the whole plum. Well, each of these dried prunes is one whole plum, but you can pop one in your mouth at a time. And so in the same amount of time it took you to eat one fresh one, you might have eaten 5, 6, depending on how fast you eat 10, dried ones. And so not only are you getting a little bit of extra sugar that they add in the drying process, but you've just eaten the sugar and fiber. With prunes and plums, that's something to worry about, the sugar and fiber content of 5 of them. And so I like dried fruits. I think especially in trail mixes and things like that, it's a good way to get fiber, and it adds that little bit of sweet to different things, but you just have to be aware that it's the same content as a whole piece of fruit, which is this is a lot easier to eat than that whole piece of fruit is. So
We've actually done that, serving sizes for different things, and that was one of the things that we had people come and put on a scale how much you think what serving size is. People usually tripled it.
Yeah.
Or like only about 5 pieces was like 1 serving. And you can easily grab that in one hand.
Yeah.
Right.
It's easy, I think, from what I've heard before, is like just the palm of your hand is really a serving size of trail mix or dried fruit. So that's a good way to think of it, just a small little handful. Also, as far as portion sizes go, I've seen at Kroger before, they have the little plastic bags that have like cup sizes on it. So you can fill, if you're making your own trail mix, you can do 1/4 of a cup or 1/2 a cup, and it'll have it labeled on the bag. So that's an easy way to make your own, and pack it early, and then you're not tempted to eat the whole bag. Because I can easily eat the whole bag.
If I don't portion it out and the bag
Yeah.
is in front of me, I'll nibble and nibble and nibble, and I'll overdo.
Yeah, and sometimes I was going to point out too, with dried fruit or nuts too as well, you might experience some stomach pain or something if you eat too much dried fruit. One of the preservatives they add a lot in dried fruit is sulfur dioxide. So again, with our label reading, yeah, it has as a preservative sulfur dioxide as a preservative. I don't really know what it does. It probably helps, not sticking,
it
stuff
might
like that.
maintain the color or something.
Yeah,
like that.
something like that. And so that preservative can cause people's stomach upset. So, looking for one that doesn't have that, something that's going to be just the dried fruit, maybe some ascorbic acid, which is just vitamin C. So raisins are a good option. Those craisins we're going to try later are a good option as well.
The other thing about eating trail mix and dried fruits and things like that as a snack is if you are wanting a snack because you are actually hungry, the serving size of that is so much smaller. And granted, it has the fiber and things like that will help make you feel full, but if you eat a whole piece of fruit, that is much more satisfying to you because you can get a lot more versus that one palm of your hand of trail mix that's in a serving. And so
yeah, and the fruit too. Yeah, the fruit too is going to have more water content in it as well. So sometimes if you have hunger cravings, you might actually be a little dehydrated. So first of all, just drinking more water can help. But getting some fruit that's going to have natural water in it already, and vegetables too, that can kind of help hydrate you as well.
And then we're going to go straight that way. That you've really got to watch what they put on the label, because a lot of the times, for a lot of things they put on the label, there's no actual regulation about what they can say and what they can't say. So one that I like to point out to people is high C. High C, it has 100% of your vitamin C, which if that's the case, if they put something like that on there, then it actually has to have 100% of your needs of that vitamin C. But then here, made with real fruit juice, and then 2 little asterisks beside it. So yes, there might be fruit juice in here, but the question is how much? And when you go to figure out what the asterisk means, it's only 10% real fruit juice. Out of this whole thing, only about that much is actual fruit juice. So,
but it won't stain.
It won't stain, which that should worry you too, because fruit juice will stain.
Because what's in there?
So the question is, well, what's in there? If it's only 10% fruit juice, and you're saying it's
Sugar.
Yeah, it's sugar flavored water, basically. But if you go down a little bit further, there are actual fruit juices. So, like the V8 Fusion, this is one combined serving of fruit and vegetable, and it has no sugar added to it.
Right.
So in one of these, you get a serving of fruit and vegetables. Well, half serving of fruit, half serving of vegetable, let's say, so a total of 1. Or there's the fruitables, which it's, again, a combined serving of fruit and vegetable, and it's third less sugar naturally, no sugar added. Or if you're just wanting juice and you're not worried about the vegetable content thing, there is juicy juices, which are actually 100% juice. So they do, even in the quick to grab, easy to go boxes. That's why I wanted to talk about the boxes versus the bottles, because I wanted to point out that even if you're on the go or you're on a car trip or on something that you need something portable, there are options that are actually juice instead of 10% and then 90% of who knows what.
I just noticed too, this one up here has added calcium.
Yeah.
And with the orange juices too, when we point that out, especially for kids, for adults too, I don't drink a lot of milk. I know I don't get enough calcium. This is a good way to get added calcium as well. And if kids don't like to drink milk, but they'd rather have some juice, you can feel a little bit better about that, because they're, again, going back to that nutrient-dense item, these are going to be much more nutrient-dense than the high C, even though they might have the same amount of calories and even the same amount of sugar. You're getting, maybe some vitamins from your vegetables, some vitamins from, the fruit, and calcium as well that's added. So you said you're having to take a lot of vitamins. Maybe this could be something you could add in every now and then.
Speaking of that, we're going to back up a little bit because we skipped a point, talking about added vitamins and nutrients and things like that. I wanted to point out we had talked about the canned fruits, and then these are the fruit cups. And again, you're going to want to look for something that says 100% juice, not the gels, not the syrups, but the juice. And I also wanted, because we're going to be sampling these later, and I love them, we buy them at my house, are these squeezable fruit stuff, applesauce and that kind of thing. And again, you've got to look at the labels, you got to understand what you're buying, but a lot of them will be just like, I know for a fact this one is just applesauce and apple juice. That's all that's in there. And so you don't have to worry about the added sugars, you don't have to worry about any of that, that's all that's in there. They do now make them with the fruit and vegetable together. So we're
going to try these.
We're going to try these, and for picky eaters, adults or kids, because when you combine fruit and vegetable in a blender and whir it up, it's going to be a real funny murky color. It's not going to be pretty. And so if you are a visual eater, or you have a kid or a grandchild or whatever that is going to look at something brown and murky and be like, I'm not touching that, this is a way, because they're hidden. It's hidden inside the little packages. So instead of the cups where you can see it, this is a way that you could pack something like this in your lunch or somebody else's lunch or on the go in a car trip, and it has a full serving of fruit and vegetable in here, and it is 100% fruit and vegetable. And so you get that combination of nutrients, not only from the fruits, because the fruit cups are just going to be the nutrients from fruit, but this will also have nutrient from the vegetable choices. And this is, the vegetable in this one is sweet potato. So there's the nutrients of sweet potato in here also. So I just wanted to point those out, that is an option as a way to get more nutrients in your food as a side or something like that, if you like the fruit taste, because these are going to taste like fruit. You will taste them later. They're going to taste like the fruit. They're not going to taste like sweet potato, but it has a sweet potato in it. So you've got the beta carotenes and things like that. So here, I like to cook ourselves, but we probably go to.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You don't want me to think. Although I love the store, so I don't know what to tell you.
But I know, since there's only 2 of us in our household, sometimes buying a whole big thing of celery or something like that, before, we're probably not going to use it. In fact, we never use it all before. The end of it kind of goes a little limp and rubbery and all of that. And so I did want to point out the frozen vegetable aisle. In Kroger, of course, if you're going to buy frozen vegetables, you want to look for the items that are just the vegetable. None of the sauces, no lightly seasoned, no lightly sauced, none of that stuff. You want just the vegetable, and that way you can season them yourself. But I love Kroger frozen vegetables because they do these all-natural recipe beginnings. And so these are just the vegetables. There's no salt, there's no sugars, there's no seasonings, anything like that. But they are classic mixes that are used in a lot of recipe starters. That's what it's for. So I know a lot of foods you're going to start with a saute of carrots, celery, and onion, right? That's a very classic start to a lot of dishes. Well, they actually have a recipe beginning of the carrot, celery, and onion that's already diced for you and everything. So if you only need half a cup total of these, so like maybe one stalk of this and one carrot of that and half an onion, well, you can just measure out, and put it in your skillet and start from there. And then you just roll it up, put it in a baggie, and stick it in your freezer until you need it again. So it's a way to because I know a lot of people have problems with buying fresh fruit and vegetable because they say it goes bad before you can use it. Well, this is a way that you can have those fruits and vegetables without worrying about it going bad in your refrigerator, especially if you're using it as part of a larger recipe. I know you said you like to do homemade soups. They have a great vegetable soup starter mix. It's got okra, carrots, corn, green beans. It's right here, lima beans. And I love it. We do beef soup, chicken soup, all kinds of soup. And for the vegetable content, I'll throw one or two of those bags in there. Chopped onions, yeah. They've got the Cajun blend, which is the celery, onions, and bell pepper. If you like that blend, they've got the 3 pepper blends.
It's really convenient.
Is it great for omelets?
Yeah,
That would be great for omelets, just a little bit in there.
and they're very affordable. So you can buy the soup starter mix for $1 versus trying to go to the fresh section and buying all the ingredients. You're going to be spending more than $1 on all of that. So I just wanted to point these out because this is something I've not seen. Maybe other grocery stores do it, but I have not seen it at other grocery stores. I've only seen this at Kroger. And we use them a lot because, like I said, it's just 2 of us. So it's a lot more convenient, affordable, and we are still getting our vitamins and nutrients from the vegetables in our foods.
This is good because you know how many times I just walked past that?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was there.
Yeah. I didn't know it was here
I
until
didn't know
she
she
pointed
just
it
went
out
out
to
like,
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good option for sure.
And they have different blends. I mean, there's the stir-fry vegetables. They do make them with noodles and rice and things like that. I would, of course, if you're looking at the nutrient files, I would start with the vegetables because it's the same vegetables, and then add your own, whatever you're wanting
like
to
whole
use.
grain noodles or.
There's the California blend that's got the carrots and cauliflower and broccoli in it. So there's all kinds of blends, and so just take some time to check this section out. Next time you go shopping, especially if you're wanting to make soups or something like that. But it will really, it makes it a lot easier for me anyway.
Yeah.
Briefly about the very minuscule frozen fruit section. Because just like with frozen vegetables, you don't want the things that have been added. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, please. And the great thing about most of these is they are just the fruits. And a lot of them tend to be whole fruits. We use a lot of the tri-berry blend, which are blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries. And they're the whole root blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries. So you're getting fiber, you're getting all the nutrients, but they're frozen.
It's like smaller window.
Yeah, they're actually cheaper and they last a lot longer.
Oh, yeah.
If I buy a pack of blueberries for $4.
Right. This is another example of if you only have a couple people in your household who are eating them, and more cost effective, the frozen taste just as good, if not better, because again, they're picked at the peak of freshness, unlike maybe what's over in the fresh produce that are flown in who knows where. And they taste just as good. The one downside is if you are going specifically for a presentation, like you're wanting to top a cake or something like that, you're probably not going to want to use these because they do, as they thaw, they get a little bit smushy. But in oatmeal or in smoothies or baking inside or anything like that, or just eating on top of your cereal, this is a great alternative to fresh. And again, Kroger also has their organic Simply Truth version as well, which I love that they've gone to that. They have their version of the organic in the frozen foods also. So again, you don't have to go to one of those specialty stores to get organic frozen fruits if that's what you want. So I just wanted to point this section out that it does exist, and it's normally with a whole lot of stuff that's not so good for you, but
No, I was just noticing that it's like,
Yeah, with the
Step in the corn
dessert.
dog.
Yeah. And I do want to point out, again, you need to make sure you get what you know you're getting, because they do also have strawberries packaged with sugar as well. So you just need to read the label and make sure that you're not getting something that already has the sugars, that isn't added sugar and things like that.
Right.
So discuss the yogurts. We talked about yogurt already a little bit, but over there in the specialty food section is where you can find a lot of the non-dairy yogurts. Pretty much over here you're only going to have dairy yogurts, but there's a very large selection of kinds of dairy yogurt. So you're going to have Greek yogurt, regular yogurt, yogurt that has some random flavorings in there that claim to be fruit, and then things with fruit. It can be a little overwhelming. To me, my rule of thumb, I like Greek yogurt because it has higher protein content than a regular yogurt. And so, but I can't do plain Greek yogurt. It's got a bitterness to it that I can't handle. So I get the vanilla Greek yogurt, and then I add my own fruit to it. And a lot of times we do the frozen, like I said, the tri-berry medley and the frozen Kroger brand. And so the little bit of vanilla does take that edge of the bite off of the Greek yogurt, and then I get the fiber and I've got the protein of the Greek yogurt, but then I've got the fiber and nutrients of the fruit also. And then I know exactly what's going in. I know there's no artificial food colorings. There's no who knows what goes into some of these fruit claiming items.
Fruit at the bottom.
We also,
that stuff.
yeah, we also do buy it in the larger tubs. It's a lot more cost effective, but we eat it quick enough that that's an option for us. And they do have the Kroger brand. That's what we buy. It's the Kroger brand vanilla Greek yogurt. That's what we buy. And they have that in the large tub. And you'll see that they have all different kinds in the tubs. But if you know you're not going to eat it that quickly and you're buying the fruit, the frozen fruit, because it's not going to go through too quickly, the cups are just as good. You're probably going to spend a little bit more on it for the convenience factor, but you also don't have to worry about, okay, if I crack that seal, I've got to eat it in several days. So, any questions about yogurt? So I think that this is our last stop on our tour, and so I wanted to thank you all so much for taking time out of your Saturday to come out and listen to me talk for an hour and 15 minutes. And so if you have any other questions, feel free to get in touch with either myself or Ashley, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And now we're going to head back to the conference room so that we can taste some of our things we've been talking about today.
Yes.
So, all right.